Hi, I hope you're doing well today. Today I want to talk about my decision on some estate planning tools. Essentially, I've been weighing the pros and cons of getting some estate planning documents done using a website versus contacting a local estate planning attorney and having those same documents done. So when you reach your early 50s, and prior to that, if you have kids under 18, you should have a will. And when you get to my age, or in your 50s, you need to really decide what's going to happen with your stuff when you are no longer here. And so I do not currently have a valid will, myself and my wife, which is a concern because we're taking a trip to Greece at the end of October, early November, and if the plane goes down or the tour bus goes off the side of the cliff or the boat sinks, because that includes a cruise, then my kids would have a real mess on their hands. And that is the absolute last thing I want to do to my kids. I don't want I don't want their last memory of me the complete mess that I left for them, because mom and dad passed away together all of a sudden unexpectedly, which I know is rare and probably won't happen, but it's good to have documents in place anyway. So essentially what I'm looking for is last will and testament for myself and my wife, along with power of attorney documents, so someone could take over if needed, if I or my wife became incapacitated and either myself or my wife was no longer here. HIPAA paperwork, healthcare proxy or living will. Not really interested in a trust per se, but just what's the simplest, easiest way to leave my primary residence and a couple of vehicles to my kids without introducing a lot of complexity. So it's pretty straightforward. As far as our financial accounts are concerned, everything is taken care of and fine. You know, my wife is primary. Either my wife and I are both named on the account for banking, brokerage account, which is appropriate for a common law property state like Arkansas. We're not a community state. So, property, the house, the cars are in both my and my wife's names. So there's no concern there. And all the financial accounts have transfer on death, TODs for bank accounts for brokerages and retirement accounts, and POD or pay on death for any bank accounts. You know, any insurance policies has my wife as primary and kids as contingent, and vice versa. So financially, as far as the financial accounts are concerned, we're fine. It's really just the physical assets. It's our primary residence, our land that we own, and 2 vehicles. So looking at the options, trust and wills.com. I've been looking at that, and essentially for about $300, you can get those documents taken care of for yourself and your spouse. And if you wanted to work directly with an attorney, that's an additional $300. So $600 is kind of what I was looking at for the online option. Then I contacted a local real estate estate planning attorney, and essentially they would do all the same documents. They could do wills, basically wills only for myself and my wife, for $900, which is fine, and that's kind of the basics that we want to have covered. But they also had a estate planning package that would include those other documents that I mentioned, power of attorney and healthcare proxy, living will, those type documents, as well as one additional, which would allow us to avoid probate for our house, and that's called a beneficiary deed, which we could go ahead and name our 3 kids, and then if my wife and I passes, or when we pass, then the kids would automatically inherit the house and we could avoid probate, which is very appealing for me. Now that option is $2,200. And so again, more expensive than going the online route. And I suspect with the online route, I could get a beneficiary deed handled, and that would, my guess would be additional $300 to $400. So I would think about $1,000 all in, versus using a local estate planning attorney who's going to charge $2,200. So for me in my situation, I'm going to go ahead and pay the extra money. I'm going to pay the $2,200 to have all the documents taken care of, and as well as the beneficiary deed. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to make sure that my kids are taken care of, and that my or my wife's untimely death or even timely death does not cause a great burden to them. Our estate planning is pretty straightforward. We have 3 adult kids, and everything's going to be divided into thirds, and it's very clean, and there's not a lot of complications. There's no blended family situation, which I know could cause some complexity. There's nothing along those lines. There's no special needs kids, again, which can add some extra complexity and the need for a trust. So that's the route I'm going to take. And I feel good about that. So for you and your situation, my research online let me make sure I'm getting the website right. Yeah, trustandwill.com. It seemed like it would work fine. And if you have a very simplified situation where it's just you or you and your spouse and you don't own property, then, that might be the way to go. Some online reviews on Reddit, that I read, who knows, right? Some people were saying, the online option's cheaper, but, sometimes they mess things up, or they cause unintended problems. And, for simple situations, it'd probably be just fine, but I am willing to pay the extra to feel good and feel confident that things are taken care of, as well as I'm still a bit of an old school person. I don't know about you guys, I'm in my 50s, so I was around as most of you were before the internet. So I still appreciate having a local attorney that I could contact. I suspect we'll be making updates. Like for now, I'm going to have, my wife has a older sister, who will be executor of the estate, and I have an older sister who would be a backup executor of the estate, and they would also back my wife and myself up as far as healthcare type decisions. And I suspect as my kids kind of age and mature, that we'll probably make some changes to that over time, over say the next 5, 7, 10 years. And so I like the idea of just being able to contact that same office and work with someone in that office, whether it's the same estate planning attorney or someone else in that office who could make some tweaks and some updates over time as we needed. And then also I want to leave that contact information for my kids. So when my wife and I pass, if they have any questions or concerns, there's a local estate planning attorney who they could contact and who would be somewhat familiar with their situation. So I like the idea of that. That way I'm vetting that real estate estate planning attorney, and that's not something that my kids have to worry about. Of course, they could always do the online option if they want to, and that's fine. But so for that peace of mind and having that local touch, I'm willing to pay extra. But you guys have to decide for yourselves. So yeah, that's the decision. So here in a couple of weeks, my wife and I will spend a few hours, spend a couple of $1,000s, and have things knocked out. So what about you? Do you have all your estate planning and documentations in place? If you're retired or in your 50s, we had a will drawn up by an online service years ago when we had minor kids, just in case something happened to my wife and I about who would take care of our kids. And then things, changed. That was a long time ago. All my kids are grown now. So, and I never did get that documentation notarized. And so, it would have been a little messy, but probably would have worked out fine. But so it's not that I didn't have anything in place, but I just want to make sure I have everything in place. Because, someday I'm not going to be here, and someday my wife's not going to be here. And so this is really about making sure our kids are set up and making life a little easier on them. We also have a funeral home picked out. We have cemetery plots where we want to have our ashes placed, even though we haven't made those purchases, and that might be additional items that we take care of here in the next year or so. But I have all that listed. I'm a little hesitant to prepay for a funeral because what if my wife and I end up moving to a different area for some reason? So I'm not sure I'm willing to go ahead and prepay, but we'll see. If I get to be a lot older and I'm still here in this area, and it looks like I'll be staying in this area through the remainder of my life, then I will go ahead and prepay for that, for the funeral home and all the funeral arrangements. But right now I'm just going to leave contact information for the people I would expect my kids to use, and kind of leave it there. But what about you? What's your thoughts? Is everything all locked and loaded and ready for you to pass away? Or do you still have some things you need to take care of? This is a great time to do that now while you're still around and you're watching YouTube videos and you're feeling good and healthy. Don't put it off too long. My name is Walter, and this channel exists for those interested in a little bit of a perspective on early retirement or planning for retirement, or just living a life of financial freedom. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Hey, leave a comment. That helps get this content out to others that might enjoy or need to hear it. So thanks so much. We'll talk again soon. Take care. Bye now.